Hi, Mr. Bonnet. So thank you for your time to taking this interview with us. Maybe first of all, you would like just to say hi to your audience.
Hi, my name is Sean Bonnet. My business is the Precision Group. I'm very pleased to be here today.
So as we know that, I think you studied law before, right? For your major, and you became a lawyer at the age of 21. So why did you choose to give up on that career and put yourself into the Australian commercial property market?
My parents always wanted me to study at university, and I always thought that law was a good course to do to understand how to do business. I practiced for a few years, giving advice to business people about growing their business. But then I decided I wanted to actually do it myself. I think a lawyer gives advice to someone, and I think a business person actually creates things. And I think at the age of 24, I said, I actually want to be the person creating things.
What is like back then to doing a business especially in South Australia, such a, comparatively with less population, more tradition city or area?
It was quite tough, and in the early 90s, South Australia was actually in quite a depressed state. But it also gave a wonderful opportunity to me. It gave opportunity to actually go and buy small properties and do works on them and improve them and actually start building up the bank balance. That was very important at the start, to actually build up my capital base.
But then, after a few years, you changed your focus to Brisbane. So why is that? Because you didn't choose Sydney, Melbourne as your first choice, Adelaide and then Brisbane.
Again, when you're growing a business, you need to find markets where you can rise quickly in. Sydney and Melbourne are mature cities. They're the places where Australia has its largest population, and it's much more harder to compete. So I started growing my business in Adelaide with sort of less competition and more opportunity. And then I really looked around Australia where I thought there was similar opportunity to really have accelerated growth. Where would the next place, the next city be where I could do what I did in Adelaide? And I thought Brisbane was a state with a lot of opportunity. It was a city which was still growing, and it had the benefit of having the best weather in Australia. So I thought it made sense to have the next place that I invest in to be Brisbane.
You have a lot of assets now in Australia, and you listed in the richest 200 people in Australia. Maybe you can give us an introduction about your current business distribution.
Got 10 key properties around Australia, and my business has about 720 odd tenants. So it's a medium-sized business, and in terms of its distribution, look, we deal with all tenants. We've got mums and dads, retailers who have small businesses, who run small coffee shops and food businesses, and we also deal with the largest retailers in Australia and overseas. Our biggest and best tenancy being Apple in Brisbane. We've got the largest Apple tenancy in Australia.
What keeps you think is very optimistic about this market, especially this industry is periodic, and how do you do it when the economic is not so good?
Look, Australia's still a young country. Yeah. That's the first thing. I mean, it's almost 200 years old, almost.
Okay.
So it still has a long way to to go, and it's an enormous country which over the next decades will grow with migration.
Yeah.
I'm still very, very much positive about property, because I think property has been the key investment that has been around for many thousands of years. In the last 10 years, people have worried that is the internet going to make property irrelevant? Yeah. But I think that's because the internet was not well integrated with traditional business. Now you have traditional business and the internet working together. Before they used to be competing. Yeah. So companies like Apple have their retail stores, and then they have, their online distribution, but they work together in harmony. In property, even when you're having a recession, there's opportunity. Everybody has to eat. Everybody, you need to, however, be able to adjust the tenancy mix. So, when a country is doing very well, lots of people go out to restaurants to eat. When a country's in recession, people go to the supermarket a lot more and eat at home. So, when you have a shopping centre, you have to understand how you can change that around.
Throughout all these years, good times and bad times, maybe tell us something exciting. What's the most successful case you think you've done?
It is my shopping centre in Brisbane, Macarthur Central, which I had purchased about 8-9 years ago. And when I bought it, it was distressed. A lot of the tenants were going broke, and a lot of people in the marketplace thought I'd go broke as well as a result of buying it.
Okay.
But I was able to turn the asset around, put a big supermarket in it, a big Woolworths supermarket in it, put a department store in it, and more recently have opened up the biggest Apple tenancy in Australia in it. Yeah. So it's been a very big success.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for this industry?
It's not something where you get quick results.
Okay.
So you need to be very determined, and you need to be very persistent. A project can take many years to achieve. This Macarthur project took me more than 6 years to achieve. So it's easy along the way to give up. And you need to stay very determined and very, very much on course if you want to succeed.
I read from a column that you mentioned that guanxi is very important. Obviously, you know about China, Chinese people pay very much attention to guanxi, which means relationship. Maybe you can tell us how you use this value to manage, first of all, maybe this whole, your business group, and then also your business.
I see the relationship as the most important aspect of any business. I think over the last 20 years, I've been always very relationship driven, but I see it today as the absolutely most important, to be treating people with respect, to be treating people honestly and openly, and investing time in the relationship, to be keeping in touch. For me, it's meant that the people I deal with, whether colleagues in the industry or retailers, they trust you. And it's a bit like 20 years ago I started my business. Today the people will say, if Apple can trust Sean, then they can. Yeah. So I think it really goes to the issue of reputation.
So at last, let's talk about China a bit. In what areas do you think these two countries has more potential to cooperate? And second is that in what areas do you think that Australia that welcomes China's investment?
I'm so excited about this happening. It is such an enormous opportunity for Australia, and Australia can grow now much quicker, and it can establish many more resources, whether it be in education or in its infrastructure or in its commercial property projects. I think you'll see a lot more activity in all these areas. And I think it gives a great opportunity for the Chinese, who are much more experienced in these areas, to become much more involved in Australian business and the Australian life and culture.
Do you have any suggestions for these Chinese investors?
So I think the Chinese have enormous vision. I think the only advice I could give to the Chinese is that I think Australia is not that dissimilar to China in terms of its culture. On the whole, the Australian people are very relaxed and friendly people, and they enjoy business and they enjoy people. They enjoy socializing. I think the Chinese do as well, and I think to really come to Australia and experience it for themselves. I think that's probably the best advice I could give.
Maybe for your business, you also have some plans in China?
Absolutely. So over the last year, two, I've been making a number of trips to China, to Beijing, to Shanghai, and many other cities. And I have starting to understand the market myself, and taking the same advice that I'm giving the Chinese to really be going over to China and learning and understanding that market with a view to investing in the market.
And what's your impression about China?
I think it's extraordinary the change that has happened over the last 20 years with the speed of innovation has been amazing. And I think to be part of that, it's definitely something that I'd like my business to have an involvement in.
And you're very optimistic about your possible future cooperation with China?
Absolutely. No, I think it's, I certainly see some expertise which we can bring to China, and I think the marriage of the skills of the Chinese with those in Australia, it's a very happy marriage. I think the Australian business has very good management skills that it's developed, which I think would be very useful in projects in China as well.
Great. I think that's all for today. Thank you.